Hello everyone and welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today, in this particular episode of CAT Curriculum, we'll be looking at previous year questions of the CAT examination or the Common Admissions Test. Here we'll be looking at verbal ability and reading comprehension, which is one of the three sections that the CAT exam is broadly divided to. Now, the exam is pretty important for people who want to pursue a career in management. Now, let's look at the VARC questions for today. Again, as with most questions in VARC, they are based on a long passage. Now, let's read the passage first and answer the questions. I used a smartphone GPS to find my way through the cobblestoned maze of Geneva's old town, in search of a handmade machine that changed the world more than any other invention. Near a 13th century cathedral in this Swiss city, on the shores of a lovely lake, I found what I was looking for: a Gutenberg printing press. This was the internet of its day, at least as influential as the iPhone, said Gabriel de Montmolly, the director of the Museum of the Reformation, toying with the replica of Johann Gutenberg's great invention. Before the invention of the printing press, it used to take 4 monks up to a year to produce a single book. With the advance in movable type in 15th century Europe, one press could crank out 3,000 pages a day. Before long, average people could travel to places that used to be unknown to them. With maps, medical information passed more freely and quickly, diminishing the sway of quacks. The printing press offered the prospect that tyrants would never be able to kill a book or suppress an idea. Gutenberg's brainchild broke the monopoly that clerics had on scripture, and later, stirred by pamphlets from a version of that same press, the American colonies rose up against a king and gave birth to a nation. So, a question in the summer of this 10th anniversary of the iPhone: has the device that is perhaps the most revolutionary of all time given us a single magnificent idea? Nearly every advancement of the written word through new technology has also advanced humankind. Sure, you can say the iPhone changed everything. By putting the world's recorded knowledge in the palm of a hand, it revolutionized work, dining, travel, and socializing. It made us more narcissistic. Here's more of me doing cool stuff. And it unleashed an army of awful trolls. We no longer have the patience to sit through a baseball game without that reach to the pocket. And one more casualty of Apple selling more than 1 billion phones in a decade's time? Daydreaming has become a lost art. For all of that, I'm still waiting to see if the iPhone can do what the printing press did for religion and democracy. The Geneva Museum makes a strong case that the printing press opened more minds than anything else. It's hard to imagine the French or American revolutions without those enlightened voices in print. Not long after Steve Jobs introduced his iPhone, he said the bound book was probably headed for history's attic. Not so fast. After a period of rapid growth in e-books, something closer to the medium for Chaucer's volumes has made a great comeback. The hope of the iPhone and the internet in general was that it would free people in closed societies. But the failure of the Arab Spring and the continued suppression of ideas in North Korea, China, and Iran has not borne that out. The iPhone is still young. It has certainly been one of the most important, world-changing, and successful products in history, as Apple CEO Tim Cook said. But I'm not sure if the world changed for the better with the iPhone, as it did with the printing press, or merely changed. Now, as you can see, we've got 6 questions that are based on this particular passage. Let's tackle each of them one at a time. Our first question. The printing press has been likened to the internet for which one of the following reasons? A. It enabled rapid access to new information and the sharing of new ideas. B. It represented new and revolutionary technology compared to the past. C. It encouraged reading among people by giving them access to thousands of books. D. It gave people access to pamphlets and literature in several languages. Now, one of these options, that is option B, says that the printing press represented new and revolutionary technology compared to the past. Now, of course, this is a solid fact. However, it doesn't really affect the author's view of the printing press being likened to the internet. Now, let's look at the other three options. A says it enabled rapid access to new information and the sharing of new ideas. C says it encouraged reading among people by giving them access to thousands of books. D, it says it gave people access to pamphlets and literature in several languages. Now, if we go back to the extract and go to the second paragraph, which is here, so nearly it shows this. So let's read through it silently. And nearly every advancement of the written word through new technology has also advanced humankind. And let's go back to the first paragraph. Now, of course, some of these got mixed together. So if we look at it, we can see that from here on out, when you read this first paragraph, you can see there are various statements related to medicine, related to maps, related to killing or suppressing an idea, which shows that the printing press helped in disseminating information. Now let's go back to our first question. So reading among people, of course, that is included. Gave people access to pamphlet and literature is also included as statements in option in the first paragraph. So as you can see, option A, it enabled rapid access to new information and the sharing of new ideas, turns out to be the right option. And there is a reason for that. C and D are not completely incorrect, but the problem is if you chose either C or D, it's going to negate the other options in the list, because here we are choosing one answer. So if we just ticked up C, it means that the printing press did not give access to pamphlets and literature in several languages, which is wrong. However, if you chose A, these points, which are C and D, are actually they're actually subpoints to the general statement that the printing press enabled rapid access to new information and the sharing of new ideas. And that's how it's been likened to the internet. And of course, the idea of likening the printing press to the internet was given by, if we look at it, Gabriel de Montmolin, the director of the Museum of Reformation. So now that we've established that, let's move back. Let's move on, actually, to question number 2. So this was question number 1 here, and A was the right answer. Let's move on to question 2. According to the passage, the invention of the printing press did all of the following except. Again, this particular word has been capitalized, so we know that we're finding the wrong statement, which becomes the right answer. So the invention of the printing press promoted the spread of enlightened political views across countries, gave people direct access to authentic medical information, shortened the time taken to produce books and pamphlets. And then the fourth statement being enabled people to perform various tasks simultaneously. Now let's go back to the extract. Now, you can see that after Gabriel de Montmolin's initial statement, you can see before the invention of the printing press, it used to take 4 monks up to a year to produce a single book. With the advance in movable type in 15th century Europe, one press could crank out 3,000 pages a day. We also see that medical information passed more freely, diminishing the sway of quacks, and tyrants were never able to kill a book or suppress an idea. And monopoly that clerics had on scripture was broken, and the American colonies rose up against the king and gave birth to a nation. So these are, and then also in paragraph 3, you can see it's hard to imagine the French or American revolutions without those enlightened voices in print. So, as you can see, in the passage, you can identify the presence of statements options A, B, and C. So these are true statements. Let me just remove the tick marks so that we don't get confused. So these statements are true, which makes these options incorrect. They are found in the passage. So this is in paragraph 3. Both of these are in paragraph 1. So the right answer, which would be the statement that does not exist because it's not present. So since the option D, that is enabled people to perform various tasks simultaneously, is not found in the passage, we can see that option D turns out to be the right option. The other options, although correct, do not become the answer to this question because we are talking about the option that does not exist in the passage. Now, let's look at question number 3. Steve Jobs predicted which one of the following with the introduction of the iPhone? People would switch from reading on the internet to reading on their phones. People would lose interest in historical and traditional classics. Reading printed books would become a thing of the past. The production of ebooks would eventually fall. Now let's go back to the extract, to the part where Steve Jobs talks about the iPhone. Again, this is statement 3, if you look at it. Not long after Steve Jobs introduced his iPhone, he said the bound book was probably headed for history's attic. Now, this particular statement in the extract actually leads us to our answer. Now, the answer that is the correct one is option C. Reading printed books would become a thing of the past. And that was found in paragraph 3. So people would switch from reading on the internet to reading on their iPhones. This is not found in the passage. It's not a true statement. People would lose interest in historical and traditional classics. This was not mentioned because what Steve Jobs mentioned was paper books would become a thing of the past. Even though people would read online, they would still, if interested, could read a historical or traditional classic. The interest of people in historical or traditional classics has nothing to do with whether the book is a paperback or an ebook. The production of ebooks will eventually fall is again wrong because it's the opposite of what Steve Jobs said. He said that with the rise of the iPhone, people would move towards ebooks more and printed books would become extinct. That's what Steve Jobs' statement implied. So the implication of Steve Jobs' statement with the introduction of the iPhone turns out to be option C. Reading printed books would become a thing of the past. So that is the correct option. Now let's look at another question. I'm still waiting to see if the iPhone can do what the printing press did for religion and democracy. Now, the author uses which one of the following to indicate his uncertainty regarding the statement. So he has some uncertainties regarding the impact of the iPhone. We need to find out what he uses as an example. The rise of religious groups in many parts of the world, the expansion in trolling and narcissism among users of the internet, the continued suppression of free speech in closed societies, the decline in reading habits among those who use the device. Let's go back to the extract and read it completely. So first talks about finding the Gutenberg printing press, also talks about history, where the advancement of the printing press helped with a lot of social change, including reforming religious societies. Then we have a, a paragraph that talks about the iPhone's significance paling to that of the printing press. The third paragraph has the statement that goes, for all of that, I'm still waiting to see if the iPhone can do what the printing press did for religion and democracy. This is our initial statement. We need to find out what was the example of that effect not really being happening that we find in the paragraph, in the passage. So in the third paragraph, again, it talks about a little bit of history and also about predictions in the past that said the book would disappear, which didn't work, which didn't happen. However, if you go to the last paragraph, it said the hope of the iPhone and the internet in general was that it would free people in closed societies. But the failure of the Arab Spring and the continued suppression of ideas in North Korea, China, and Iran has not borne that out. So that these statements from paragraph number 4, or the concluding paragraph, would give us our answer. So if we go back to our question, which is of course question number 4, you can see that the continued suppression of free speech in closed societies is the uncertain event, is the event that brings into question whether the impacts of the iPhone are really good or they're just change for the sake of change. So option C turns out to be the right option. The other options, the rise of religious groups in many parts of the world, was hinted at in its history, in the history of the printing press. Again, not explicitly used. So it's not an explicit statement that says it's because of the rise of religious groups in many parts of the world that I think the iPhone really has an impact on religion and democracy. The expansion and trolling and narcissism, this is basically talks about the change brought by the iPhone, changes brought by the iPhone, just to illustrate whether its features were really significant. So the expansion and trolling and narcissism wasn't something that was used to talk about religion and democracy and the iPhone's effects on it. So option B is incorrect. Decline in reading habits among those who use the device, again, wasn't related to religion and democracy. So therefore, the right option in this particular question is option C, the continued suppression of free speech in closed societies. Now let's look at question 5. The author attributes the French and American revolutions to the invention of the printing press because maps enabled large numbers of Europeans to travel and settle in the American continent. If my memory serves correctly, this was paragraph 1. The rapid spread of information exposed people to new ideas on freedom and democracy. This was in paragraph 3. Encouraged religious freedom by destroying the monopoly of religious leaders on the scriptures. Again, paragraph 1. Made available revolutionary strategies and opinions to the people. Again, this is also in paragraph 3, but it comes as a subpoint to option B. Now let's go back to the extract, paragraph 1 first, of course. So we're talking about breaking the monopoly of clerics on the scripture and also the maps statement. Both of them are present in paragraph 1. In para 3, it says, it's hard to imagine the French or American revolutions without those enlightened voices in print. The statement before says the printing press opened more minds than anything else. So, as you can see, paragraph 3 gives us the answer as option B. So the use of maps was in para 1, which was not related to the French and American revolutions. Option C, again, wasn't completely related to it. It was in paragraph 1, and it was a general statement regarding the changes in European society. So both options are incorrect. Option D, made available revolutionary strategies and opinions to the people. This, again, was a subpoint to option B. So while in its sense it is correct, if we were to take this as the correct option, then we would negate the general idea, we would negate the larger idea of option B that says the rapid spread of information expose people to new ideas on freedom and democracy. So that makes option B the right answer and option D incorrect, even though both of them hinted the same thing. D is a finer example, a finer explanation, a specific point, if you may say so, of option B. So therefore, option B is the actual answer that you should be writing if this question ever came again in your examination. Now, the final question for this particular episode. The main conclusion of the passage is that the new technology has some advantages, but those are outweighed by its disadvantages. If you've read the paragraph with me so far, you would know that this is a general statement, too general, and has nothing specific in terms of what the paragraph actually discusses, which is the kind of changes that the iPhone and the printing press have brought about. Option B, so far not proved as successful as the printing press in opening people's minds. Option C have been disappointing because it has changed society too rapidly. Again, this goes back to the essence of the paragraph. We're talking about the kind of change that the iPhone and the printing press had brought, not the pace of it. The pace of the change was never for once critiqued. So option C is incorrect. Option D, been more wasteful than the printing press because people spend more time daydreaming or surfing. This is a contradiction to paragraph 2 because at the end of paragraph 2 says people have lost the art of daydreaming because of the advent of the iPhone. So option B, the second option, so far not proved as successful as the printing press in opening people's minds, turns out to be the right option. And the author has supplemented this with examples from closed societies, and also the fact that people still suffer from failures and revolutions in opening up of societies, and that meant that the new technology, that's the internet and the iPhone have not so far proved as successful as the printing press. So option B turns out to be the right option. Now that concludes this particular episode of CAT curriculum. We hope you found this episode interesting and informative. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Brain Blitz Audios, if you want to get more updates on the CAT examination, more previous year questions about CAT or of any other examination. Then please don't forget to hit the bell icon present below the video to get our latest notifications. So until the next episode, take care, stay safe, ta-ta for now.